Hey folks, I'm Alex Dowd.
And I'm Katie Rife.
Today we're going to be talking about Eliza Hittman's Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. It was a hit at Sundance, and it's coming to theaters this week.
Welcome to Film Club. All right, Alex, so today we're talking about Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which is the latest film from Eliza Hittman, a filmmaker been around for a few years. She has, I believe, 2 previous features under her belt. But this one was a big hit at this year's Sundance, as you mentioned in the intro. It is a realist drama about a young girl in Pennsylvania, teenage girl. She's 17, I believe, in the movie. Her name's Autumn, and she finds out she's pregnant. And then her cousin helps her pocket a little bit of money from the supermarket where they work, and they go to New York to help her get an abortion.
Right.
And that's the basic plot of the film. You know, it's not a super eventful film, but it hit close to home for me, and I think it'll hit close to home for a lot of people.
Yeah, for a lot of women, probably, too.
Yeah, for a lot of women in particular, yeah.
I mean, did you find its depiction of, where did you grow up again? I forget.
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, so a place probably not so different than where this
from
film
rural
is set.
Pennsylvania.
Rural Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
Yep.
no, it's not that different at all. Like the kind of place early on in the film, when she finds out she's pregnant, Autumn goes to a clinic, and when she walked in, I thought, oh, I wonder if this is going to be one of those clinics where they make you get the ultrasound, because I remember hearing about these places when I was a teenager, that to always check and like to look up the clinic before you went there, because they're like religious organizations basically, and they go and you find out you're pregnant and everything, and then they march you right in the ultrasound room and show you your baby and hand you a bunch of pamphlets about how abortion is murder.
Yep.
And that's where she goes early on in the film. That's her only option in the town she lives in.
Yeah.
And so they have to board a bus to New York City.
Right. And you see a lot in the early stretch of the film, you see a lot of her kind of trying to figure out what her options are. So she's 17, she's very young, she knows she's not ready to be a mother.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the film, a lot of films would treat that decision as the drama in itself, but this film kind of trusts her judgment there.
100%. I agree 100% about that. And a lot of the early scenes are about her just trying to figure out what she can do about that. As you said, this is Hittman's 3rd film. She made a film called It Felt Like Love, which all of her films have played at Sundance, but this one premiered there a few years ago. And then another film called Beach Rats.
Yeah.
I've liked her work up until now. I'm a little bit of a skeptic of hers until this film, honestly. My thought on her work has always been that she has a really keen sense of observation.
Right.
She's really great with things like details of environment.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of her films are set around Coney Island.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this film was very realistic and textured in its depiction of both the rural Pennsylvania life, and kind of just a large portion of the film is spent where Autumn and Skylar are just kind of walking around New York City riding the trains all night because they don't have money for a hotel.
Yep, and I think that she's great with that kind of stuff, and she's great with these precise details of behavior and environment. Some problems I had with her earlier films were, I think that occasionally the dourness of her movies can feel like an affectation. Her movies are all about teenagers or young people, very young people who are coming of age, and they're all so relentlessly glum.
And that's a cliche in indie film,
it is,
right? You know, like if you want to parody a film festival, you say, oh, well, it's all depressing movies with no dialogue about people worried they're gay.
Right, sure. Sure. And but to me, it starts to feel a little bit like an affectation sometimes when you have characters who don't talk much. I mean, and there's a little bit of that in this film when you have 2 teenage characters riding a bus to New York, and they like basically have they barely speak a word to each other on the way.
Yeah.
That rings a little false to me.
A little bit, but I also found it touching. For example, something I noticed is Autumn doesn't have to say the word pregnant.
Right.
Her cousin just knows.
Right.
She knows that that's what's going on, and and Skylar doesn't say to Autumn, I'm gonna take some money from the till and take you to New York. She just does it.
Yep.
And I found that very touching because it showed like the bond between them and the understanding between them.
Right. And that degree of solidarity. I mean, another small detail of the film is that they both work together at the grocery store, and their manager is a total creep. And that just is part of the fabric of their life.
Yeah, that's something that you see sometimes in films, particularly films directed by women, I've noticed, is that in this film, it has this thing that I'm referring to, which is just sort of an ambient sense of just free-floating danger from men all around all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like varying degrees of danger, but just the knowledge that the world is not a safe place for them to move around.
Totally. I think what made the big difference for me in terms of thinking this one is such a big step forward for her as a filmmaker is that there is an urgency to it that isn't necessarily present in those earlier films, which can feel kind of, the earlier films feel kind of aimless, and I think that part of that is that they're just keyed to the rhythms of sort of normal, mundane American life. But this one sort of takes that aspect of her work and applies it to, I mean, you can almost call it like an agenda-driven narrative. I mean, there is
a little bit
something they have to do, basically.
Oh, you mean that way? Okay.
Yeah.
Not politically.
No, I don't mean politically.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
And it's interesting you say that too, because I think this thing has this is a political film in the sense that any film about trying to get an abortion in this country is political.
Yes.
It does not wear its politics heavily.
No, not at all. I mean, I would say the strongest political statement this film makes, like, and pure politically, it's saying that Planned Parenthood is a good place staffed by nice people.
Yes.
Like, that's like
Totally.
the strongest stance it takes there.
Yep.
So
there's a really powerful scene in Planned Parenthood, the film gets its title from.
Yeah.
And that's a.
Oh, the acting in that scene really broke my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sidney Flanigan, who plays Autumn, she gives a very subtle performance, but there's a lot of shades to it. And you were saying that it's an agenda-driven film and that it pushes forward. I found a lot of tension in it, particularly. So what ends up happening is they have to stay 2 days to finish the whole procedure, and so they have to spend 2 nights on the subway. Just riding around, because they don't have anywhere to stay.
Like killing time, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I actually was just terrified for them the whole time that something shocking would happen.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
I feel like the film's vision of New York is that it's this exciting new place, but also that it's a place where, I mean, they essentially are like country mice in the big city, you know, and so the film acknowledges the danger without turning it into,
Kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But they don't seem particularly interested in New York, you know? They don't
Right.
they don't even
Well, because
really
they're
want
there for a reason.
Yeah.
You know? And the film at a certain point becomes about what do they have to do in order to get home?
Well, one thing I would praise about the film is that, like another cliche of indie films, is that something really dramatic or tragic or shocking would happen to, enable that, but this film doesn't go there, which I actually appreciated. It spares you like the trauma of them having some horrible ordeal.
Totally. I remember at Sundance the film got compared a lot to 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. The Romanian film that won the Palme d'Or a few years ago at Cannes. And there are some parallels between those films. That film is set in Romania in the late 80s, and it is about 2 women also trying to procure an abortion.
Right.
And I won't spoil that film for anyone who hasn't seen it. Some horrible things happen in that movie. This movie is tonally a lot different than that in a lot of respects.
Yes.
But I do think that there is an underlying point and there's an underlying sadness to the idea that Romania in the late 80s in some ways isn't that different than America right now in terms of the barriers that are put in front of women trying to terminate a pregnancy.
Well, yeah, and particularly, and the film, again, without using words, clarifies early on, there's a scene where she's Googling, I found this so sad, where she's just Googling like how to get an abortion in Pennsylvania. And it shows on the screen that she has to get permission from her parents because she's not 18 yet, and that's why they can't get it there.
Totally.
Because she can't, absolutely, it's out of the question to tell her parents what's going on. I agree that in Beach Rats in particular, the lack of dialogue was a little bit stultifying. But I think in this film, the lack of dialogue really ties into the larger tone and the larger sort of like emotion that I took away from it, which is this feeling of like that this stuff happens every single day. Stuff like this has happened to people I knew in Ohio. This sort of thing happens every day. And there's something very poignant about the fact that this isn't like necessarily a life-shaking event. It's just something that happened, and then everyone's going to go back to their lives, and I found that very profound in a way.
Okay, folks, thanks so much for watching today. That's all the time we have. If you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe. We'll be back next week to talk about A Quiet Place Part 2.
See you then.
Bye.